Hello and welcome to another Scots Way podcast, and today I'm joined by Debbie Armour to talk all things Burd Ellen and the new album A Tarot of the Green Wood. Hello Debbie.
Hi.
So before we discuss the album, can you give us a bit of background to Burd Ellen?
So Burd Ellen is, well, it used to be my solo project, but it's my kind of duo effort with another Scottish musician called Gayle Brogan. She makes music with lots of other people as well, and solo as Pefkin. And we got together in sort of 2018.
Right.
And we make, I guess, kind of spooky, drone-based, contemporary, traditional music.
That's
Something like
really
that.
interesting, because I was trying to think, how would I explain the music of Burd Ellen? Because there's no doubt for me, this, including your other albums, you listen to a Burd Ellen song, you immediately know that's what it is. It's got a real strong identity to it. Well, let's talk about the traditional songs, because you say there's traditional in it, but there is so much more going on. You've got kind of, it's dark and atmospheric. What was the inspiration and what's the aim of it?
I don't know what the aim of it is. I guess to make the work that I want to see in the world, I suppose, which I mean, I feel like that should be everybody's aim.
Yeah. I know that maybe that's not a well-phrased question, but I guess what I'm thinking is it creates such a kind of distinct world, almost like a listening world with it. And also you've got the visuals, which we'll talk about as well. I guess that's what I'm thinking of. It's creating a kind of the music that you don't get elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's very the sort of conceptual stuff is all me. That's all my kind of domain, and we do strive to create a very kind of distinctive space for you to be in, and each of the albums is its own space in and of itself. And within each of the albums, there is like, I like to look at them all as a sort of like series of like interconnected vignettes, little kind of windows into different environments and different people and different ideas. And the visual aspect of it is quite important to me as well. Everything should have like a nice strong visual identity, and each of the separate pieces of work has a visual identity that goes along with it. And it's quite important for me that the work also, maybe a little bit perversely, but the work also stands up outside of the conceptual framework of it. You should be able to just like pick it up and for it to be good, right?
Yeah.
For it to be listenable in the first instance, and then if you're curious enough to find out, there's hopefully lots more to talk about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's interesting. When I first started listening to the album, you've got your individual tracks, but actually after that, it becomes almost like one piece of music.
Yeah, it should. That I'm so glad. I'm so glad that that's how it feels. It's very much intended as a sort of suite or a cycle, if you like. Like we're interested in and amongst the other sort of hinges that we're playing with in the record, the hinge between cartography and cartomancy. So it should feel like a map, should feel like a journey, it should feel like a that kind of process.
That's really interesting. And with the new album, you've got another structure to it, and that's in the structure of the tarot cards themselves.
Yeah. We did them in number order just because that made the most sense. And when it came to put it together, actually, we try to do it different ways. You know, we try to order the tracks differently, but actually it is a journey. Like the tarot in itself is a journey, and um you know, it's just quite neatly reflected because the each of the songs is so thematically close to the card that it represents. Actually, of course, it just makes sense to do it in the order that they come up in the deck, you know, and it feels nice and complete and satisfactory in that way.
And also, with one exception, the songs get longer and longer and perhaps more, not more complex, but more immersive.
Yeah, it should feel like you're going into the woods and then coming out again. That's kind of what I had in my mind when we started to work on it and put it together. That's what I wanted it to be like. You're going deeper and deeper and deeper into the woods, and then the star shows you the way out at the end, and it's up to you if you're any the wiser for it or
Ah.
not.
So, I mean, are you a tarot reader yourself?
Not for other people, generally, although I do sometimes do readings for other people. But yeah, I'm a big enthusiast in my own life. I read for myself all the time, and I collect decks. I have maybe like 30 or 40 different decks that I've collected over the past 15 years or something like that. I'm a big fan.
And is each card represented on the album?
No, we chose nine.
Yeah.
We chose nine in a sort of a dovetail between the music that I wanted to make and the ones that are sort of, yeah, I mean, like it's difficult to say. We didn't pick the cards first, we picked the music first.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
And then the cards kind of emerged from out of that. Somebody asked me if we were going to do the whole major arcana. The major arcana is like 20 odd cards, and it's really tempting. It's really tempting. I'm quite a completist.
Mhm.
You know, I like things to be whole and to go through the whole cycle, but it feels, it's sort of unimaginable at the moment that another set of songs would just fit so neatly
Yeah.
together. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, it's difficult to say. I would love to do more, but it's all kind of fallen together in a really kind of organic way, and it's not very often that that happens.
Yeah. You feel almost if you were trying to get that number, then there would be something more forced about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I totally think it would become, the concept would be overriding the music, and we always try and be in service to the song, right? Always. The song is the most important thing. The song is the primary thing. Like the
So,
concepts and everything are fun for me, but the song is the primary motivator.
so how did the songs come about? Were you in residency? Is that right? Did I read that you were?
Yeah, we got to do the Summer Studios residency at Sage Gateshead in 2021. Yeah, just over a year ago, and we had 5 full days to just do work, to just make work. And Gail and I, you know, that kind of time is incredibly luxurious
Mhm.
for us. I think for most artists, actually having that kind of dedicated time where you don't have to do anything except work. Um, you know, you don't have to do emails, and you don't have to make dinner. And Gail's got a full-time job. Gail's a civil servant, you
Mhm.
know, like to have that time was really luxurious, and it allowed us to come away with basically the whole album done. Just about, there was only one song that we hadn't finished by the time we left, and it, you know, we were able to like bring the books and, you know, be really selective about the text, and do things that we normally do separately,
Mhm.
do them together, which has made for, like, I think a much more robust piece of work, much more kind of cohesive piece of work. Mm.
And in that sense, were you working together differently?
No.
No, there's
Just
more
working more
intense.
together.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, working more together. Like the way that we work, I don't know, it's difficult to articulate it. Like it's better for us to look at each other out of the corner of our eye rather than straight in the face. Does that make sense?
yeah. I
You
think
know,
it
like
does.
I always imagine it like, you know, the seven sisters, the stars, the
Mhm.
constellation. You can't see them if you look right at them. You can only see them if you can see them out of the corner of your eye. It's like that. If you look too hard at it, then it will go away.
But you know what? That's really interesting, and it actually kind of fits the music as well, because there's something not hidden's the right word, but as you said, the corner of your eye, or uncanny, or something like that. You know, um, it's a. Let's talk a bit more about it. It's in a kind of folk tradition, but it's a really dark and unsettling one. Is that? Would you think that's fair to say?
Yeah, I think it's fair. Um, I, s- I wish it wasn't intentional. It kind of is intentional. That's the material that I like, and I like it because it's the same things that are dark now that were dark 500 years ago. Do you
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like I really enjoy the stasis of it. Like the things that make us happy now are not the same as the things that made us happy 500 years ago, right?
yeah,
So like the things that women talk about in songs, for example, when they're happy are not the same. They don't really reflect my experience or my life as a contemporary woman.
hmm,
um but the bad things that happen and the things that are scary and the things that are difficult and the things that are challenging are all the same. And I like that. I like that stasis. I like that kind of thread um of notion, and that thread of relatability, and you know, plus I just am a bit spooky. Just
it got me thinking about when you do have, whether it's books or film, perhaps recently, which is dealing with kind of similar things. It's often historical. It's often, you know, I was thinking of The Witchfinder General or something like that, or you know, even Kill List. These kind of films where they go back to history to make comment on what's happening today.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that the comment makes itself, right? Like I don't like nobody really needs for me to like get on stage with my sandwich board on saying, here, by the way, men are still terrible and all that with my bell. Like, do you know, like that doesn't need to be said, you know, like, oh, you know, women still struggle to access appropriate, you know, prenatal health care, like do you know, like that. There's plenty of other people saying that in more explicit terms, and I always resist changing the lyrics to make them more palatable. Like a lot of other singers do that. A lot of traditional singers say, oh, I won't sing this song, or I do sing this song, but I change the verses and I change the text because it's just unpleasant, and I don't, you know, I don't really want to like perpetuate those ideas, and I don't really want to
Right.
yeah, like give that an air. Uh, but I prefer for people to be uncomfortable so that they can ask themselves why they're uncomfortable. And, you know, are they still uncomfortable when they leave? Maybe that's something that you want to think about a bit more.
Yeah, that idea of being uncomfortable. It's something that is, I guess, yeah, you maybe don't even think why it's making you uncomfortable, but the music goes along with the subject matter as well, and is often, it's twisted. Is that a right word? It's not all traditional. There's electronic music there. There's different
Mm-hmm.
layers of the music there. There's
Mm-hmm.
surprises often there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that the tradition is robust, right? The tradition, there's lots of people much cleverer than me have been collecting and writing and gathering and recording and documenting and archiving for a very, very long time. And if you want to know what all of the material that we use, like, you know, should sound like in a
Mhm.
traditional setting, then mercifully you can do that. And that's wonderful. And, you know, in many ways, nothing gives me more joy than to stand in my bare feet with no PA and sing, just sing. And I think that the good songs and the songs that are worth singing are absolutely, you know, it's good to do that. It's fine to do that. It's proper to do that. Um, but also, no one's gonna lose the songs down the back of the sofa anymore, right? You can play with them, you can have fun, you can take risks, and you can experiment a bit. And you know, I would hope that that kind of will to innovate and that will to move it maybe into a different audience, and move the ideas and the songs into a different space is seen by the community as something positive,
Yeah. Yeah,
or
because
that I'm viewed as a traditional singer, because I don't think I am viewed as a traditional singer.
right. I think there's this stereotype that the folk scene is that kind of very traditional and maybe, well, but I think that's changed. I mean, that's not just your own music, but other people as well. That seems to
Mm,
change massive.
mm. Yeah, I think it is changing. I don't think it has to, or it needs to,
No,
or it
no, no.
ought to, you know. I think it just is, because that's just what happens. And if you are, if you're treating the material with care, then there's no reason why it shouldn't change, right? I think it's like good practice to know what you're singing about, and good practice to know where it's come from, so
Mhm.
that if anybody ever asks you, you can tell them. If anybody's ever curious about it, then you're able to tell them. And again, you know, we're always wanting to be in service to the song.
Mhm.
The song is paramount. The song is, even with all the bells and whistles that we have, and all of the kind of other things that we hang on it, all the tinsel that we hang on the song, you know, the ideas and the notions and the chat and the blether and the artist residencies, you know, like whatever you want to do with it, like the song is still the thing that is
Mhm.
the most important. And you know, I hope that that is intact. I hope that that is something that comes through in the work. You know, it's from a place of respect always.
Can you talk about some of the inspirations behind your music and songs?
Oh, well, there's loads. I have lots of favorite singers that I really like. I like June Tabor. She's a big favorite of mine. Sylvia Barnes, Shirley Collins,
Mhm.
who's, you know, a radical,
Yeah.
you know, a real innovator, still in her 80s, making bonkers albums of like, you know, people's homemade hurdy-gurdies and stuff. You know, she's still like pushing away at the edges, like,
Yeah.
and I really admire that. Frankie Armstrong, who been lucky enough to work with in the past, real kind of like dynamic women with characterful voices who are still making work, you know, well into their 70s and 80s, you know, really important singers and tradition bearers. I love those people. Um, I also like, I don't know, Death Grips. Quite into like sort of weird, dark contemporary hip hop.
Right.
I like the Cocteau Twins. I like, what else do I like? Kate Bush, obviously. Everyone likes Kate
Yeah.
Bush. Um, yeah, lots and lots of things. We like Gail and I both have quite kind of eclectic taste. Um,
I think what's often interesting is the inspirations or the influences that you maybe don't hear directly in the music, or that aren't even musical themselves, that are
mhm,
book or film or just other things. Because you said that the kind of Burd Ellen aesthetic, if you like, is yours. You know, that's
mm,
the things that
mhm.
you're interested in. Um, so are there things which aren't musical that feed into that as well?
Yeah, Bergman. Bergman's a big influence. Love that. Icy,
Yeah.
frosty, black and white, brutalism. Uh, and yeah, definitely. Maybe like Ethel Cahoon, the painter. I really like her. She makes sort of weird, abstract, psychedelic folk landscape kind of things. Well, she made. She's long gone. I like her work a lot. I also, what else do I like that's not musical? Um, I read a lot. Read a
Mhm.
lot of things. Yeah.
The reason I'm asking that is because there does seem to be a kind of folk otherworldly tradition that's, feeds into things like myths and legends and storytelling and all of those things that again harks back to, telling a story kind of hasn't changed that much over a period of time as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. I think um you're always telling a story, right? Like
Yeah.
it, you're always telling a story, if even if you're like Ariana Grande, right?
Mhm.
Her, like, our Taylor Swift. She's a great storyteller,
Yeah.
like really she's telling her own story usually, but there's always like some kind of like grain of universality to it, right? Even though it's like intensely personal, uncomfortably personal, actually, a
Mhm.
lot of her work. But there's still this kind of root in, this kind of road in of accessibility, because she's talking about something that you've probably gone through yourself. Um, and that's exactly the same as singing songs from 500 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, if it resonates, it resonates, because it's a good story. And it's the same as when you are using the cards, right? If you're reading your tarot cards, you're actually just using tools to access things about yourself that you already know, and tell yourself a story
Mhm.
about what's happening. Like, every time you do a spread, every time you do a read, you're like laying out like a little narrative, a little story.
And let's talk about the tarot cards, because I mean, the album cover's beautiful, but there's also tarot cover cards as well.
Yeah, so we have worked with a Scottish artist called Kieran Milne, who made the cover of our first record, actually.
All right.
He drew that, and I worked with him to design a little suite of the 9 cards that feature on the album. And in the special edition, you get like a little deck of all 9.
Fantastic.
Yeah, they're very cool. They're very cool. It was really fun to do. It's quite self-indulgent to do, but if you're gonna like make your own records and run your own label, then I think you should be self-indulgent and put silly things in with your CDs.
Well, no, absolutely. If you're not going to allow yourself to do it, no one will.
Right.
I guess you say, can people pre-order the album and get their set of cards if they're quick?
Yeah, they can if they're quick. There's, I think, about 40 of the special edition left, but there's been such a strong response to the tarot cards that I think I'm probably going to make them available on our Bandcamp. Everything's on our Bandcamp. The pre-orders open now, and the album's coming out on Halloween.
Of course.
Of course it is. Dream life.
Well, you mentioned it's coming out on Mavis Recordings, which,
Mhm.
I mean, you are Mavis Recordings. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I am, for my sins. I just was like, what could I do to make my life more difficult? Why don't I start a micro label? That'd be really great.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if it's going to be a permanent home for Burd Ellen. Do you know,
Right.
like, I would never exclude working with another label in the future. There's lots of people that we would love to work with. Um, but for right now, it's kind of what needed to happen. And I don't know if you've noticed, but there's been a bit of a global pandemonium on, and it's quite hard to be a touring musician at the moment. It's quite difficult. So it's, it's a kind of vague attempt to sort of diversify. I really hope to put other people's things out on the
Right.
label. If you've got things to send me, send them to me. Hiya at mavisrecordings.com.
I'll put the link to your website and
Unless,
everything when we do the post. Absolutely.
yeah, please do send them to me, unless they're terrible, because that would be embarrassing for me and for you.
Exactly. Know your own worth. So you mentioned the troubled with touring. Are you going to be playing the album live? Are there plans for that?
Yeah, there are plans for that. We're hoping to get out on the road in March. I will be announcing dates for that in the next week or two. One of the many, many, many benefits of being able to make the work really together on Residency is that it is transportable live. The studio version is hugely kind of lush and expansive, and it won't be exactly the same, but all of the songs are playable live because that's how we made them.
Yeah.
And that feels nice. That feels like a kind of harkening back to the beginning of the project, which was something that was quite important to me at the beginning of the project, that no matter what we wanted to do, that we should be able to do it on the stage.
Yeah.
And with one thing and another, we kind of drifted away from that a bit. But yeah, no, this is going to be playable live, except for the Alistair cover. That's not. That's
Well,
sadly not.
I mean, and is that how you would maybe do it? Would be from beginning to end, that idea?
That's a good question. Maybe yes. Yeah, that might be nice to do. That might be nice to do. Maybe kind of do like a 2-set kind of guy, like do some of the hits,
Yeah.
some of the greatest hits about the drowning babies and stuff at the start, and then do the really weird stuff towards the
It could be like your Kate Bush. One side is, the pop hits, and then the other side is the
yeah,
more.
Big Hounds of Love vibes. Yeah, we're going to be out across the whole of the UK actually, in March. So stay tuned for the dates of that.
We'll be sure to let people know when that is. And I mean, I was going to ask what's next for you, but you're doing so much. Is it even possible? Are you even thinking about what's next for Burd Ellen, or is this taking up everything at the moment?
Well, I'm always thinking about what's next for Burd Ellen.
Yeah.
That's my cross to bear, right? I've already sent an email to Jim, our engineer and producer and unofficial third bird. I sent an email to Jim and Gayle saying the subject line was "the next thing," lol, but actual the next thing. Yep. So it's in the process. I'm making lots of lists in my notes app with weird like words in them and free association and stuff like that. It's happening.
I'll look forward to that as well. But for the moment, it's a stunning album, Debbie, I have to say. I hope it
Thank you.
reaches the listenership it deserves.
Oh, me too. Me too. I'm really proud of it. I think it's gone the way that I wanted it to. And we got to work with some really great people. So yeah, we're pleased.
And thanks for taking the time to have a chat with me today.
Oh, thanks for having me. I love doing podcasts. It's my favorite thing.
Excellent. And we'll be back soon with someone completely different. Cheers.